Yo, what's up YouTube? Thank you guys for tuning in to another video here on the channel. I think recently with everything that's been going on, I think right now would be a really good time to talk about what's been happening with Xbox and their whole reset that they've been doing. So if you're not aware of Xbox, or if you're a huge PlayStation fan and you're not really been keeping up with Xbox, a couple of months ago, maybe about a year at this point, they've did a shakeup where they got rid of a lot of their old leadership and they hired a new head. So the new head of Xbox is Asha Sharma. And so since then, she's been doing a lot of minor changes, a lot of tweaks to Xbox as a company, trying to bring it back. Because for those again that don't know, but I'm sure everybody that does know that plays video games, Xbox has been losing the console war race or whatever. They've been losing that for the past two generations. It's not even a competition anymore. I think back when the Xbox 360 they was really on top, but when they released the Xbox One, a lot of the decisions that they made in the creation of the Xbox One and the marketing of it really set them back a lot because a lot of people were not happy in the direction they were taking. I actually had an Xbox One. I personally did enjoy it, but I understand a lot of the pushback a lot of people had, which is so funny. Side note, it's actually really funny because a lot of the things that Xbox was doing at the time that people were pushing back on, which is the reason why that generation failed, is exactly what's happening right now with the current generation. So it's kind of like Xbox was like ahead of the curve in a way, and they got punished for it, which rightfully so. But it is what it is because their biggest thing was they wanted to. It was like always online. They wanted to go away from just being a console to be more of a media thing. They had the Xbox Connect, which is like a camera, like the motion device thing that came bundled in with the Xbox One. So it made the price higher. So everybody was upset because the price was higher than the PlayStation. It had a camera that came bundled in, and the camera and the internet was always online. So it was like an online device and all of this shit. And then you fast forward now. Look at the pricing of all the consoles now. Look at how PlayStation just moved away from physical games and it's all digital. Everything's online now. PlayStation just came out and said that if you don't use your account for 3 years, like they can take away your account and all of this stuff. So it's kind of like that was all a precursor generations ago. But ultimately, since that moment, Xbox has lost a lot of goodwill with the fan base, and they've been kind of on the downhill because even though the consoles themselves have been okay, they haven't had any really good exclusive games and a bunch of other, they're tied to Microsoft. So a bunch of other decisions that they made have really put them in a bad position, which is why a year ago they decided to shake up, the foundation. They fired people retired at the head, and now Asha Sharma has taken over. So ever since she's taken over, I've kind of liked every single move she's made. I haven't seen anything that she's done that I was against or I didn't think made sense. I think everything she's done has made like really calculated moves. She lowered the price of Game Pass and then acknowledged that putting Call of Duty on there was a bad decision. So Call of Duty is no longer going to be on Game Pass, which personally, I always said it was dumb. As much as I value Game Pass because Game Pass it is a great service. I think it's actually underrated as a service because there are so many great games on Game Pass. There are so many games in general, but there are a lot of great games on Game Pass. And for $22 a month, it's way under its value. For the type of games that it is. So, that's just how I feel personally. But she lowered the price of Game Pass. She took Call of Duty off. She just made certain tweaks. I'm sure you heard about the logo change and all of this. So she's done certain things. About a month ago, though, we heard about these layoffs that were going to be happening. And it was really rumored to be a bloodbath. That was literally the term people using, bloodbath. Like, apparently apparently the reports were Xbox was going to come and fire a whole bunch of people, like close a bunch of studios, cancel a bunch of games because that's kind of what they've been doing in the past. If you keep up with video game news, and you know that a lot of games have been canceled, a lot of studios have been closed down, there's been a lot of firings and reshufflings and all of this stuff. A lot of this has been happening really, really bad for the past, I want to say, year or so, because ultimately when COVID happened, gaming boomed because we were all at home. So a whole bunch of games took off, multiplayer, single player, that all, gaming got a huge surge. And so they started hiring people, they started spending money in all of these projects, specifically live service games. And since then, the surge has come back to normal, and a lot of these projects that they've been putting money in has been failing. And that's not just Xbox, that's every single, that's PlayStation as well, Nintendo to a certain extent as well. But Xbox is hitting Xbox the hardest because they were already behind. They were already trying to play catch up, and now everything has gone to shit. So they're really in a bad position, hence the reset. So I say all that to say, yesterday, Asha Sharma, she releases a tweet. And what the tweet is a copy of an email that she sends out to her employees at Xbox, where ultimately they are doing a mass layoff, and they are restructuring and basically, I think, getting rid of certain studios. Which I want to read certain parts of it because I think it gives really good insight into the Xbox business and the reason why the restructuring is going the way it did. Um, Basically, just to start it off, she says, "We're in the beginning of the most significant restructure in Xbox history. After consideration, blah, blah, blah. I'm letting go of 3,200 people. This will include 1,600 role eliminations today, and the rest will be throughout the year. And in addition, 4 studios will leave Xbox to new management." She says, "Unfortunately, it's not necessary to make all the changes in a day, blah, blah, which is why the people are getting let go, 1,600 today and 1,600 throughout the rest of the year." But I want to specifically get to where she says this: "Our business today is not healthy. We are operating at margins that are 3 to 10 times lower than the comparable platform and publishing businesses." Okay, a lot of people are skipping over this. We're operating at margins that are 3 to 10 times lower than comparable platform and publishing businesses. Um, what platforms is Xbox competing with other than PlayStation and Nintendo? So you're telling me that you're doing 3 to 10 times worse than PlayStation and Nintendo? That's bad. That's horrible. Unless I'm just misunderstanding what that means, that is horrible. 10 times, well, I knew they were doing worse than PlayStation, obviously, but talking about there no longer being a console war, like you just lost. Like 3 to 10, they whooping your ass 3 to, that's actually crazy, right? Not only that, if you know, Xbox has been buying a bunch of studios. So to talk on that, she says, "To grow, we bet on," she's talking about in the past, "To grow, we bet on Game Pass, multi-platform, and a broader portfolio of content. While those businesses have created meaningful value, they did not grow at the pace we expected. Um, as that happened, our core business weekend, and we added more teams, more invested, more time, hoping for better outcome." Ultimately, they bought a bunch of studios, which is Activision, which is Call of Duty. They bought Bethesda, which is the Skyrim, Fallout, or Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Starfield, right? They bought a bunch of game studios because they were trying to create studios to create games for Game Pass. They wanted to create or keep content coming to Game Pass to sustain its value. Which is why I say, in a sense, they did do that, because I will argue this: Game Pass is amazing. Game Pass is great. Game Pass is great. However, because it's one of those things where it's such good value for the consumer, it's not good for the business, because you're putting your day one games on Game Pass, which means you're not making game sales, which means the only money you have coming in is Game Pass. And it's at a really good value for the consumer. So you're not making your money, which is why, a year ago, then this is before Asha Sharma, and I don't want to get off topic, but before she she took over, Xbox did a price hike, and they made Game Pass go up to $30. And the reason why they did that is because they realized when they bought Activision and they put Call of Duty on Game Pass, they just lost out on hundreds of millions of dollars, because now, instead of me spending $70 to buy Call of Duty, I just spent $20. I got Call of Duty on Game Pass. I'm not even a huge Call of Duty guy, so I played it for a month and never played it again, right? So that's seven, you know what I'm saying? I only spent $20 on a subscription. So you could say that they got 20 out of 50, right? I mean, I'm sorry, 20 out of 70. But even still, I was already paying Game Pass for the other games. You know what I mean? So it's like that $20 didn't even go towards COD. I technically just played Call of Duty for free. You know what I mean? I just played a flagship huge title for free. That's $70 that you are missing out from me, and I'm one person. And now times that 1,000, times that 10,000, 20,000. You know what I mean? Like they just missed out on hundreds of millions of dollars from Call of Duty putting that on Game Pass. So they tried to raise the price of Game Pass. What did that do? Piss off everybody that had Game Pass. They canceled the subscription. So not only did they lose money from Call of Duty, they ended up losing money in the long run because when they raised the prices for Game Pass, people canceled their subscription. So, me knowing that, me being a consumer, if I'm taking over Xbox, the first thing I'm doing is taking Call of Duty off Game Pass. They have not announced this, but if what I'm doing, the first thing I'm doing is I'm taking day one releases off Game Pass. Like, as much as I fuck with y'all, I appreciate it. Game Pass is a great service, and it will be a great service without day one releases because there are still great games on there. Day one releases need to come off of Game Pass. Game Pass needs to be to subsidize your game releases, not be the moneymaker. That's not Netflix and all of these other subscription services. They don't make money. They get money because people invest in them, but the business model itself does not make money. So why would you try to copy that business model as your main business model? It makes no sense to me. So they have a new leader, Asha Sharma. She's coming and she's doing all of this. Ultimately, with these 4 studios that I mentioned, going back to the tweet that she released, which is the email that she's going out, she is releasing 4 studios. These 4 studios is Compulsion Games, Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Undead Labs. Ninja Theory does the Senua games, the Saga. I played those a little bit. Those are pretty solid. Those weren't like my type of games, but those did get like a lot of like critically acclaimed. Undead Labs is making State of Decay 3, which is cool. I'm not a huge State of Decay fan either, but I just don't like zombies. But those are like pretty big games and stuff like that. So these aren't just nothing studios. Like these studios have made good games in the past, but these studios aren't making the heavy hitters that Xbox needs. They can no longer afford to have studios under them just to make games for Game Pass, which makes sense. But what I really like about this is what they're doing is they're not just shutting these studios down. These studios are actually, 2 of these studios are being bought out. Yeah, so Compulsion Games and Double Fine will return to management and transition to independent studios with their own IP catalog and runway for their next games, which means we're taking these studios and they're going to be bought out. I'm sorry, they're going independent. The Compulsion and Double Fine are going independent, and they get to keep all of their IP, which I think that's cool to me. Like, all right, look, like you bought us out, you paid us to own us, right? We made some games for you, it didn't work. Now, instead of you closing us and firing us, you're just letting us go. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of a bittersweet thing because they could just shut you down and you have nothing. But not only are you letting us go back to being independent, we get to keep our own IP. That's dope. I think that's dope. I think that's a really good, like, I don't look at that as a negative at all. Like, you're doing what's best for the business while also you're not just cutting off people and just firing all of them, right? Ninja Theory and Undead Labs are being bought out. I'm sorry. Ninja Theory and Undead Labs are being bought out. So they're just going to go into different management outside of Xbox, which again is great. Like, we're not firing you, we're not letting you go. The main point of this tweet, though, that I have to get to before I end this video, which I think is really the main reason why Xbox has been failing, is these 2. I gotta read these 3 paragraphs right here. Second, we will reset our platform. We know that great technology gets better when it gets simpler, not bigger. Today, in some parts of the company, work passes through as many as 14 layers of management. Our platform teams are 40% larger than they were at the start of this generation, even as our player base and playtime have declined. That complexity has slowed down decisions, blurred accountability, and made it harder to deliver for players. As we reset Xbox, we will simplify. We will reduce management layers to no more than 5, and where possible 3. We will deliver against a flatter organization that's built around makers. Ultimately, that's it. 14 levels of management. Today, in some parts of the company, work passes through as many as 14 layers of management. Our teams are 40% larger than they were at the start of the generation. That is crazy. That is crazy because Xbox has been failing for 15 years. 14 layers of management. No wonder nothing gets done. No wonder all of these games are shit because you have to jump through so many hoops to do anything. I hated having to deal with my assistant manager. I hated not being able to just go to the regular manager. Like, well, I got to go to the assistant manager. Why can't I just deal with the regular manager? Like, you know what I mean? And you telling me there's 14 of those? That means you had to deal with the secretary. Like, that's disgusting, bro. And that's how Xbox has been being run. And so she's taken over. She said, nah, forget that. We're firing 1,600 people today. And from the looks of it, it looks like that looks like management to me. I'm firing 16 people. We have 14 levels of management, 1,600 people. But we're not shutting down studios. They're getting bought out and shifted into independent. That looks like that's 1,600 management positions. And I ain't gonna lie, I ain't got no sympathy for them. I got sympathy for like the developers. I mean, I have sympathy on a personal level. Like, I don't want anybody to get fired. And that's the last thing I want to say. Like, I don't want anybody to get fired. So they're firing 3,200 people throughout the year, 1,600 today, the other 1,600 throughout the year. That's not good. I'm not going to clap. I'm not going to applaud for anybody losing their jobs, especially not in today's world economy. No, trust me. I understand. I'm not wishing that on anybody. However, as a fan of Xbox, as a fan of video games, I could tell as an outsider, yeah, Xbox is not, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I hate the fact, and it's not just Xbox because it's PlayStation as well, but it's like you have surefire hits. You have games that we all know will sell well, that we want. Why does it take so long for you to make these games and then not do it at all? They're about to release Assassin's Creed 3, I'm sorry, not 3, but Black Flag Resynced, right? To this day, that's the only Assassin's Creed game that I ever really played because it's the best one, right? It's undeniably the best one. You go out and you talk about Assassin's Creed and you ask somebody what the best one is, they're going to say Black Flag. With all of the remakes that have been going on for the past 10 years, the way that the Assassin's Creed franchise has been floundering for the past 10 years, why are you just now doing a remake? I don't know why I'm messing my words, but why are you just now doing a remake? Like, you should have did this 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain decisions, like why, like, you know, we can go back like the Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Like, why do you have the Batman Arkham team making live service games? Nobody talks about this at all. We always talk about, or the internet kind of talks about how Spider-Man 2 was bad. Spider-Man 2 was bad because nobody talks about this. They had to spend so much time. There was supposed to be a Spider-Man live service game. The trailer got leaked. It's on YouTube. You can literally go look it up now. It was called like Spider-Man, like not Web of Shadows, but there was literally, you can look it up right now on YouTube. It's a trailer for the Spider-Man live service game that Insomniac was creating that was supposed to go alongside Spider-Man 2. And Sony canceled that, which I would have played the hell out of that because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. But it's like, and then we wonder, damn, why did Spider-Man 2 cost so much money? Why did it take so long for them to develop? Well, because they were developing a live service game that we never got to see and spent hundreds of millions of dollars on it. And that's PlayStation. Imagine doing that with Xbox and you're operating at 3 to 10 times lowerable than a comparable platform. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, they needed to reset. And again, as a fan of gaming, I don't pick a side. I have well, I no longer have an Xbox because I have a PC. So, do with that information as you will. But I have a PlayStation and I have a PC, and on my PC I have Game Pass, and I've always had an Xbox my entire life, along with my PlayStation. So I never pick a side because I always have both. Not to flex, because I was always a generation behind because I was broke. So everybody was on the PlayStation 4. I was still on the PlayStation 3. But, you know, I had it eventually. But yeah, ultimately, with this whole reset, with this email that was reset, I don't look at this as bad news. I think it's actually pretty good news. I think Xbox definitely needed the reset, and I'm actually rooting for Asha Sharma. Everything she's done so far, I haven't seen. I personally have agreed with and thought that every single move she's made recently, it makes sense. Like, this company's been failing for 15 years. Why would I come in and not fire a bunch of people? Why would I come in and keep doing the exact same thing we've been doing for the past 15 years? That makes absolutely no sense. So, shout out to her. Hopefully, it all goes well. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for tuning into another video. Like and subscribe and all of that nonsense. If you disagree, let me know. If you're a PlayStation fanboy, then, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But I'm out.